So let's get started, and then let's have you introduce yourself and welcome, and thank you so much for being here and doing this with us.
Yeah, of course. It's been an honor. Honestly, I'm so excited to talk to you guys and share everything and answer all your questions. I'm going to go ahead and actually share my screen if you guys don't mind. So I have this. I prepared a little bit of a very quick slide here. And it just kind of, you know, for me, I'm a visual person. I don't like to just be talked to at, like I like to see stuff. So I really wanted to kind of, like Jamie said, kind of lift the kimono here and kind of talk a little bit about my experiences that may help you right now, because and also just conversationally too, just talk about what it was like, as well as also talk about some like tips and tricks, or what I call the sales commandments, that I dubbed and developed through these years of just working in the industry. But I was also really fortunate to be flown out to this. So I worked at Tesla, I got promoted, all that stuff. And I was part of this thing that they flew out 12 of us. There's very few of us. I think 24 people in the entire company, because there were 2 cohorts, and I was part of the second cohort, where they flew out 12 of us all over the country, the best salespeople, into Las Vegas for a week. And we basically were indoctrinated with a bunch of sales, just tenets and principles, and it was intense boot camp. I'm talking, we hardly slept. And I'm going to share pretty much all of that with you today, with all of you that here on this call. And by the way, I will answer the questions that are in the chat, but if you guys have any questions too, feel free to just ask as well. I mean, I like to be kind of interactive as well, not just here's my presentation. This is also, I want it to be somewhat conversational too. So feel free, I'm gonna ask if you guys have any questions too. So that's the agenda. A little bit about me, just so that you guys are aware. I know that you guys already know that I'm a senior account manager right now at a marketing company, but we're just talking about Tesla here, and this is just sort of the nice, cool stuff that I got to do over at Tesla, how much money I made the company, how much total lead generation that I consistently made within a region. I was promoted within 7 months. I went from an SDR role to an AE role, and then I was helping with their marketing as well. So, we moved very quickly at Tesla. It was very, very quick. Not only the cars, but just everything. We were moving very quickly, and you'll find that a lot of tech companies do move very quickly. So, and another cool thing too was that there's not too many of us. So I was able to kind of contribute to the Women in Tech event that I loved, because, like I said, there's not too many of us out there. So this is just sort of the stuff that on paper that I've been able to do through Tesla, just very quick snapshots. But right now I am a senior account manager, which, if you guys aren't familiar, it goes from SDR or BDR, and then AE, and then you go through an implementation period typically, or an onboarding process, and then it gets handed to a customer success manager or an account manager, which isn't so much of a hunter role so much, we're getting new logos, but we are expanding our existing business. So we still have to very much be selling, but we're selling existing relationships and expanding them. So that's kind of the difference. Do you guys have any questions so far? Okay.
Yes. Oh. What does a typical day of sales at Tesla look like?
Okay, well, so I'm going to try to templatize the day as much as I can, as in the truth is that every day was a little bit different, but for the most part, as an SDR, or do you mean as an account executive?
As an SDR.
Okay, as an SDR, usually what we did was we had a pipeline that we developed. So we would collect leads, right? Our days we would come in, and we wouldn't be the ones giving out the test drives, but we'd be really generating a lot of interest and qualifying leads and making sure that they were qualified people to actually buy these cars. And a lot of these folks, it was very much B2C, business to consumer. So it was really just talking to everyday people, generating interest and collecting their personal information, which was difficult. Even though Tesla is a big name, you'd be surprised how many folks hate that, and that's understandably so. Some people, most people are very touchy about their personal information, but our jobs are really being able to collect that information, nurture those leads, and then be able to schedule test drives where then the account executives would actually come in and close those deals or close those opportunities. So that was pretty much it was like a cycle. It was just like clockwork. We just kept doing that over and over and over and over again.
What
And
tools did you use?
we primarily used Salesforce. That was our heart and soul. That was everything that we did. And like we always had a saying at Tesla where it sounds kind of morbid, but like if tomorrow you got hit by a bus, that Kevin on my team could be like, okay, I know exactly where that whole conversation went. And sometimes we would write things like this prospect has purple shoes and had a cat named Bobo. Like it may seem absolutely like, why are you writing about that? But you'd be surprised how many folks you're talking to. You really need to be able to have those little notes to keep you on track with the sheer volume of folks that you're talking to. Okay, I'm going to move forward. So let's talk about an insider view. The reason I want to talk about this is because hopefully one day soon, you guys are going to be able to work at a company much like Tesla. And I just want to talk about the culture there because that's going to be a relevant conversation with either the recruiter or your hiring manager, or you're going to be in that team and you're going to realize, wow, this is what it's like. So one thing about Tesla is that there's no true marketing team. Why is that relevant as a sales team? Well, marketing and sales, usually they're like siblings, you know, they kind of work together, they love each other, they love to hate each other. It's very much an interesting like culture or like relationship between the two teams at most companies. But with Tesla, there was no marketing team. And what that meant was the sales team, the sales was it. Like you were there, you were the last Mohican to really be that brand, to have that relationship with folks. And the only marketing we had was whatever was happening on the news because of what Elon did, or what he said on Twitter, or what he said on the Joe Rogan podcast. It was like, we really constantly, it was like folks would come and be like, did you see what Elon said? Did you see what your CEO did? And we were like, you know that before we did. So a lot of times the sales team, we did not even know, like folks were very much coming in and wanting to talk about our reputation and be like, this is not credible because of what your CEO did. It's like, it has no bearing on the product that we're selling or the service that we're selling, but we had to constantly have to keep that in our focus, and we had to be up to date with that. We had a really open and direct feedback culture. This is super, I mean, honestly, I loved it because honestly, there's no way you're going to get better without somebody telling you there's something in your teeth or there's something that you could be doing better. It really brought out a very strong relationship internally with our team. So, you know, a lot of times when you buy a car in the like world, it sucks. Like people hate buying cars because it's very salesy. You know, there's that whole like sleazy car salesman persona, and that's there for a reason. But with Tesla, it was very different, and we wanted to be very open and transparent, have very direct feedback with both our customers and also within ourselves. And therefore, we shadowed each other constantly. It did not matter if you're with the company for 2 years or for 2 days, you were shadowed, because quite honestly, that's really the only way we could give that feedback. And if Kevin, you're the only person that I see right now. So if Kevin, you know, I've noticed that Kevin has this way of like, he has this whole pitch that I'm like, oh, I'm going to steal that.
It's probably because it's late, so everyone doesn't want to show their face, you know.
That's fair, honestly. Yeah. But yeah, like honestly, it's Kevin, are you on the West Coast or are you on the East Coast or middle?
Yeah, I'm in LA.
Nice. Okay. It's still late for us too, honestly. I don't know.
It's okay. I'm watching sports anyways.
Nice. Yeah, and then after that, you know, everyone had to contribute in the company. So if there is ever a situation where you were not contributing in a meeting at Tesla, I hate to say it, but you got cut. Yeah. So if you're in this meeting and Elon found out that you were actually not contributing to the meeting and you were actually just wasting time on the company dime, you were cut. I've seen a couple people get cut. They were fired because of it. I know it's cutthroat. It's crazy, but really,
so what does that mean, contributing? Like to so just kind of like help them understand, right? Because as a newbie, you're kind of like afraid to like, do I share my opinion? Do I give my ideas, right? Like that's not normal in most cultures, office cultures.
Well, that's the thing. Even if you're new, I know there's a little bit of like, I'm new and I shouldn't say anything. Oh no, you were called on. You were very much like, hey, you've been brought on, you're hired. we didn't hire you to just sit there and not say anything. We hired you because we want your ideas, your feedback. What do you think? Did you like that? Did you think that that was wrong? Did you think that we should do better? Do you agree with that? And so, like I said, people were encouraged to contribute. If you didn't, it was actually frowned upon. And I think that's why we naturally had a very strong like team, because we knew, you know, we were celebrated throughout the whole period that, you know, diversity was very much celebrated too. So that's the thing about a sales team too, is that if you have a sales team where it's just the same kind of person, honestly, I don't think you're leaving yourself to a lot of vulnerabilities. If you are a team that's very colorful and has a lot of different like types of styles of selling and is just a diverse group of people, you're in a very good place. So, you know, you had to be able to speak up and be yourself. It's scary, but honestly, like I said, you were accepted, even if you were a little bit off center, a little different, because there's somebody for everybody. You know what I mean? So that was really cool. The other thing too is that, you know, with sales folks, we're always constantly thinking about ourselves. We're constantly thinking like, oh, you know, I gotta be like the quarterback. I gotta be the, you know, the star. And honestly, what I have found is that if you really want to work well and you want to be an amazing salesperson in general, and this goes into just being a good person too, it's just that you need to really service and treat your internal team if just as good, if not more, than your actual customer. This is going to be very different from what a lot of folks might tell you or act. But if you do this in your next role, I guarantee you that's going to be a fast track up to whatever organization you get to call home. So that's something that I personally have found. Do you guys have any questions before I move to the next slide?
Oh no, I was gonna say, thank you for saying that about being colorful, because I think that's so important. You know, because everyone has such different backgrounds and talents and things like you said. And also when you mentioned about not speaking up in the meeting, actually I was or not showing contributing, right? I just had an interview lately, and when I asked feedback about the interview, can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes, yes.
Very low.
No, you're
yeah, so they told me the feedback was like, you were our top candidate in the interview, but two others moved forward because they referred somebody. And I thought that was like weird, but so I was like, did I not contribute because I didn't refer somebody to the company, you know, but I was a top candidate. So I felt that was kind of weird.
You're saying that you were in the interview process and you were passed up on because you didn't refer someone to the company. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. So so when you said contribution, that's when I was like, how do you contribute when you're just trying to get in? You know what I mean? So
that's
how does?
Yeah, I've never heard that, because you're obviously interviewing for the role and for the company. You're not already in the company. So why would you be referring anyone?
Exactly. That's what I thought. I was kind of thrown off, but it's okay. I was just like, maybe it's not the right company for me, but you know, so that's why I was wondering, contribution, how much do you contribute? You know, how much, that's why I said, how many hoops do you go through just to get in? You know what I mean? So that's where I am.
Well, Esther, I think you dodged a bullet. I'm going to be really blunt. So I don't think that makes any sense at all. Because if that's the case and they're treating you that way already, and you're not even in the company and they're already asking you to refer, I don't know how I feel about that. Okay.
Sounds like network marketing.
Yeah, almost. Doesn't
Right?
it?
Yeah. Can you refer your family, please?
Yeah, I was like, is this an MLM? What's going on? I don't know. But yeah, that's strange. Okay. Let's go about, so this is kind of high level, like I call them 10 sales commands, but they're like the high level stuff that I learned over at Tesla. Maybe you guys it'll apply to something and maybe it'll help you guys. Also, these are things that I think would be helpful while you're job searching, because you can apply this to a lot of things like sales. That's the beautiful thing about sales, is that if you're a good salesperson, if you do it right, you're a pretty powerful person that can be very persuasive in what they need and what they want. So The number one thing that I found when I was at the boot camp, that these are the things that they taught us and were super monumental. Like, it helped me make that $7.5 million for the company and get promoted, was the number one thing is like, I don't care about your product or service that you're selling. You could be selling literally anything. It could be meta tags or whatever tag or whatever you're selling, what SaaS platform you want to sell, whatever. It's not about that thing. It's about you. You got to be selling yourself, not the blank. So a lot of times, people want to talk about the thing. It's not about the thing. It's about yourself, which is why it's so important to be yourself. And it's so important that a lot of sales teams need to be diverse, because those are all players on your team that can talk to and to speak to whatever difference or that prospect is. That's something that we were taught from the very beginning of our careers there. The second thing is, if it's not specific to the customer, don't talk about it. And this kind of goes into anything with prospecting, right? If you had a conversation, don't write a generic email. Don't talk about generic stuff. Talk about very specific things to the prospect, right? So you could literally be selling, it's funny because like you could be selling water to a dying man on a desert, but he's not going to take it if you're not talking about the very thing that is plaguing him, which is his thirst. You can talk about, oh, you can wash your hands with that water. You can take a shower with that water. You can look at the water. You can use it, no, who cares? It's to you, you're thirsty, you need the water, right? And this is commandment number 3, I would say, is a very powerful tool. I'm going to get into the more spicy tool, like spicy commandments in the next slide or so. But the first thing that you want to always frame yourself to have the advantage, guys, is frame everything as a loss, not the gain. What do I mean by that? People are not motivated to change unless they realize that what they're doing is costing them more. So, you ever hear when people like, I hit rock bottom and then I finally changed? People had to hit rock bottom to be like, wow, what I'm doing is not working. And that's when they change. It's not when things are okay or things are whatever, but there's this other better thing. But you're not gonna change because there's a better way. That people just like that with sales, you could talk about all the benefits that you can sell to this person, but if you don't talk about how what they're doing right now is actually costing them more, and in time and money or whatever they value, then you're going to have a hard time really having them change. All right. This commandment 4, I struggled with personally because honestly, I had a lot of anxiety. When you're on the phone, when you're in that call with that person, you just want to keep talking because that silence is really unnerving. But you have to understand that with sales, people need time to think about what you're talking about. And sometimes you just need to be quiet for them to actually think about it. So, I would say lean into the uncomfortability of silence, because silence is really your tool. It's actually an ally. It's not something that's working against you. And then the other thing is presumptive selling. I don't know if, Jamie, if you guys talk about this stuff in the curriculum, but at Tesla, we did this a lot. And presumptive selling is really essentially, it helped me get a lot of sales. It got me very far in my career. And that is the idea that you just assume that the sale is happening, and all of your communication and your demeanor, you basically are continuously planting this seed that it's happening. So it's like, hey, so when you pick up your car, you're going to want to go this. And then when tomorrow when you go get, your registration license and all that stuff, get that sorted out. And then when you don't say if you're going to get your car, you say when you get your car, it's going to come with all of these things. It's a very subtle way to really kind of get people thinking, yeah, this is my car. Yeah, this is going to happen. Yeah, I'm totally going to get this. It's a very subtle thing, but it works every single time. Personally, I have actually gotten a lot of folks sold and like signed on the dotted line. And then I get them so excited that the next day they've had to, I'll admit, they'll be like, oh shoot, I can't actually afford this car. Like I've gotten them, that's happened before. So be careful with that one. That's kind of a spicy tip, because presumptive selling, if done correctly, can really kind of hypnotize the person. And then they're like, wow, I'm in this. So if you guys want to learn more about that, I know how to there's like a whole process with it, but presumptive selling, definitely look into it because it's a powerful tool, or it's a powerful method of selling. Commandment 6, use your reciprocity to your advantage. This is how I got so many leads. This is honestly the secret of how I was able to generate that many leads in my career. Honestly, so the idea is that people are very people like to reciprocate, right? They don't want to just give and not get something back. They also don't feel like when I've given you something, I'm gonna feel like, when I get something from you, I'm gonna feel bad and I'm gonna be like, okay, I'll give you something. People are like that naturally. There's a natural law there in the world and society today, right? Give and take. This you can use to your advantage in sales. It's a very subtle thing. I'm laughing because it's almost borderline manipulative, but it's something that we did at Tesla every day. If you want someone's personal information, right? And this is not illegal or anything. This is just negotiation tactics and persuasion. Is you frame it in such a way. Framing is always very powerful. You frame it like as if you're giving them something. So if I say, hey, sounds like you have a lot of questions. I'm happy, would you like my information so that you could reach out for if you have any other questions? Person's going to be like, yeah, sure, no problem. Like, of course, I'd love your information. Now, they can't have my information without me getting their information. So it's a slick way of me being able to get their information that way. It's kind of like, hey, let me give you my phone number. It's like, okay, now that you have my phone number, now I have your phone number. Does that make sense?
Can you kind of dialogue that a little bit to just kind of like explain what that, so even if you and I role play a little bit,
Yeah.
so they can kind of like hear that and.
Yeah, I'll just say something like, let's say you're looking around and I say, what brings you into Tesla today?
Oh, I just think it's time to get rid of a gas car. Like they're just not going anywhere. And these cars are beautiful. I want one.
Yeah, I mean, how long have you heard? I mean, what do you know about the company?
I don't know a whole lot except Elon is crazy. I mean, that's what I hear in social media, right? But I know that like there, it's more cost effective and there's some great benefits when I register my car and things like that. So here in Arizona, so I'm kind of excited about that.
Okay, Jamie, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to be not about, like, I want you to be against the idea of giving me your personal information.
Yeah.
And so, or at least like kind of on edge about it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so how soon are you looking to purchase a new vehicle?
Oh, I don't know. I'm just kind of looking.
Yeah, for sure. That's fair. So if you don't mind, like, could I actually, I mean, I can, would you mind actually can I have your personal information so that I can send you more, you'd be a part of our newsletter and you could actually be in communications with the company?
Oh no, my husband would never let me do that. We're in Arizona. People steal your identity all the time. I'm sorry.
Okay, so me going for it and just asking for your information, it's very like, whoa, you can get defensive. It's not a very good, don't do that. My way of what I'm talking about using reciprocity to your advantage would be, okay, let's try this again. So what brings you into Tesla?
Oh, I just am curious about this new way of driving, and I hear there's some great benefits when you live in Arizona.
Yeah, no, there's a ton actually. And like, how familiar are you with the actual cars? Have you done any research yourself?
No, I mean that's why I came in to just so I could like see them in person and stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I totally understand that you don't have a lot of understanding, or there's actually a newsletter, and I don't mind actually just sending you some if you'd like. Like, it's not going to bother you every single week. It's like once a month, and you can adjust that. Would that be helpful?
Yeah, I mean I get a lot of emails.
Okay. Well, how about this then? How about I be your point of contact? So if in case you have any questions, that way you can kind of cut through the noise, and I can give you my information if you'd like.
Oh, that'd be so helpful. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you, woman to woman, right?
Yeah, for sure. I get it. It can be overwhelming. Plus, I could be like your personal assistant with when it comes to like when it does, if the time comes, you can absolutely reach out to me. Now, when I say that, I'm actually going to need your information for that. So that's how it happens, is that you frame it in such a way where it's like, hey, I will be your main point of contact if you have any questions. So you don't have to like, You don't have to be overwhelmed. You just reach out to me via email. Now, I need your email in order to actually do that. So that's kind of how it works. Does that make sense?
Yes. So do you guys get, like, do you kind of get what she's talking about? So it's kind of this like give and take kind of thing. And it kind of puts people, like, it sets their fears aside so they can just deal human to human. Is that making sense, you guys? They're all asleep already. It's late.
Yeah,
Yes.
that was a
Yes.
great example.
Okay, I'm gonna breeze through these. Basically, the other ones is, let your customers do the hard work for you. You definitely, after a sale in general, you don't want to be able to kind of, you wine and dine and then you like hit it and split it. You want to actually let the customers be the salespeople too. So let's say recruiters, let's make this about job searching. Let's say the recruiters say, hey, you were in the running, Esther, but like we ended up going with these other folks. There's still, I mean, I wouldn't recommend this company, but let's just say you had a recruiter and they said, hey, we decided to go for a different candidate. They're not people that you now just give up on. Those are people that you already have a relationship with them. You want to follow up with them. And continue this process of retargeting, which is where you're nurturing that lead. I look at those recruiters like you're nurturing a lead and you want to continue that relationship because you never know when an opportunity does come back. Okay, and then the next are, serve your team better than your prospects. I think I touched on that as well. When you do actually, you're in an organization like Tesla, you definitely need to leverage your teammates. And then also the last one is know when to quit. I know that's kind of ironic and a little bit contrary to what we're told as sales folks, but I've spent a lot of time on people that did not want to buy, and I've spent so many time like just wasting my energy. And it's such a fine art to know when to give up on somebody and when someone's just a proverbial tire kicker or a literal tire kicker in life. So just understanding whether someone's actually qualified and interested and someone who's not, that's kind of an art. So don't feel bad if you do quit, because you could be saving that energy on someone who's actually willing to give you that time. And then the last one, I know this is a little contrary to what I just said, but really I learned this much later in my sales career. I used to always fear getting the no. When someone gives you a no, you're like, oh gosh, totally shut down. Okay, I guess I suck. Like, all right, I'll leave you alone. But the thing is, like, as salespeople, it's a fine art. That's when our work begins, is when somebody says no. Because no is actually let me just say this, guys. If somebody gives you no answer or a maybe, those are way worse than a no. A no is a potential for not just a yes, but those people that have said no to me are the people that I've sold, and then they become like evangelists at the end. It's so funny because the people that are willing to be honest and say no, they're inviting you to connect with them. You want to be able to have this tone of like curiosity, like, oh, like, don't come at it like you're trying to charge at them when they say no, but you having a kind of an attitude of curiosity, of asking like, open-ended questions will take you very, very far. So those are something that I've learned, and it took me a very long time to learn, but that's something that I am sharing with you guys. A couple resources, and these are actually things that my mentor and my former manager at Tesla, these two books changed my life. I love The Compound Effect. It's just in general, it's like a good life book, but it's one of my favorite books, and I've read it multiple times, and I don't really read books multiple times, but I have read this one. And of course, Never Split the Difference. I'm a big Chris Voss fan, so
you guys have access to Chris Voss's book through VT Lightspeed, and then I'll work on seeing about the compound effect for sure. But Chris Voss's book is where I would start when on the extra resources that you guys have access to for sure. So yeah.
okay, so that's pretty much concludes my whole spiel. I know it's late again, so I appreciate you guys sticking it through with me. Do you guys have any other questions? I think I can probably go into the chat. Let me see.
So I think it's interesting that what Nina touched on, you guys too. I don't know if you caught it, a maybe is the worst thing you could possibly hear. That's the one that's going to string you along. You're not stringing them along. They're literally stringing you along, because they already are way embedded in their own solution, or they'll never have the money, or they'll never look your direction, but they just are like stringing you along. So I don't know if you could talk a little bit about kind of the yes, no, maybe kind of thing, and how that works a little bit in sales.
Yeah, I mean, again, I know there's books that say like try to get to the yes, and the yes is great. That means you're done, you close the deal, you close the account or the opportunity, you're on to the next one. The no is where your acumen as a salesperson kicks in. And if you don't know how to, so I'll give you a story. When I was at Tesla, I told you about those times where they would call me after the fact and they'd be like, hey, I know I signed on the dotted line. So the thing about Tesla is that, and I think there was a question about the sales cycle, is that you sold the customer, but you didn't get paid on your commission until the car was delivered. That could take 2 years. That could take 6 weeks. That could take 2 days. It wasn't like, all right, we're done, let's keep going. It was like you nurtured that relationship. So that was kind of my crash course into account management, where you have to nurture that relationship and keep in contact. Now, there's a lot of things that can happen in the period between them signing and them getting the car. Divorces, people's finances change, they lose their job, something happens, they can't buy the car anymore. So they lose the deposit, but they are pretty much out of the deal. And I would say that you want to be able to not just when they say, hey, just kidding, I can't do this anymore. I used to just take it and roll over and take it and get, okay, you want to break up? Okay. And that was it. And my manager was literally like, Nina, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like, you're not doing your job. You mean you're just letting them say no and break up with you like that? No, you don't let them just walk. You ask them why. You ask them what changed. What could we change? How do we rectify this? You were all about this whole situation. So, personally, in my personal life too, like if somebody wanted to break up, I was like, cool, see you later. But that doesn't work as a salesperson. As a salesperson, you have to be like, really confused and be very curious, like, how did this happen? I thought we were on track. And then really start to kind of get them to think again, because sometimes people get cold feet, right? We're all human. We're like, maybe not, maybe this isn't a good idea. That's not a reason to back out. That's not a reason to quit. People every day always kind of question their choices, but that doesn't mean you should quit. Like, that's not good enough. And so as a salesperson, you really want to be able to like challenge gently what that no means and be able to, I like, my style is to allow that prospect to kind of reach that conclusion to themselves and go, yeah, actually, that was dumb, I should stay. No, this makes a lot of sense. I'm gonna give it, I'm gonna go for it. So a maybe is hard. What a maybe is, Jamie, like you said, it's hard. It's basically it's a fake no, and I hate that. It's like, just give me a no.
Right?
Yeah.
That's how I am too. Just say no, because it's the laws of averages. After so many no's, you're going to get a yes. But the maybe, that's just like somebody threw something in your bike spokes and you're just like, oh, whoa, what just happened? So yeah, there's really like, yeah, like, is it a smoke screen? Is it real? Like, what's behind it? And how do you get down to it? Like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys have ever been, I'm relating it to a personal life, but if you've ever been trying to be with somebody and they're kind of on the fence about you and you're so all in on them, and then it's like, what do you do? Do you leave them or do you stay? I mean, it's a tricky situation. At least if they said no and they flat out rejected you, you know where you stand and you can just move on with your life. You can, you know what I mean? You're not sitting there staring at the ceiling like, where do we stand? Yeah, that gray area is a horrible place to be. I would much rather get the door slammed in my face or the phone hung up than a maybe, because that's usually a fake no, and I hate that. But don't waste your time. Move on to the next person, I would say, is usually is what I would say.
So how do you deal with days full of no, 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 and more no?
Okay. I would say that, first of all, I totally know what that feels like. I know that's, kind of weird to hear from someone who you're like, oh, she's done this or whatever. But you have to understand that the folks that have like been to where they are have seen and heard the most no's. So you have to get those no's to get to that point. It's just like any sort of failure. You're going to see a lot of successful people, but you have no idea how many failures they've had to endure. So just consider it part of the training, part of the process of life. I would say that, as a salesperson, it has nothing to do. It's sometimes when you're starting out, it's hard to not take it personally, right? Like, is this about me? Am I doing something wrong? Is it just, do they not like my face? Trust me, these are the thoughts that have happened in my career, but it's none of those things. It could really very much be whatever is going through their head and where they're at right now. So not taking it personally and really kind of being able to separate who you are and your value as a person to what's going on with that other person is super key in terms of sales, but also just pumping yourself up too. Because I say, a win is around the corner. You just need to find that person who's looking for you.
What are your go-tos for pumping yourself up? So you knew that was my next question, right?
What is my go-to for pumping myself up?
So I don't know, a deal went south, or maybe you didn't sleep well the night before and you're just not in the groove. Like what? Because you guys, you have to show up, right? You have to be, you can't just like call out and say, I don't feel like it, or I didn't sleep well, or I had too many no's, right? Like it doesn't work that way.
There's two ways to combat this. One is to have like a buddy, a best friend, to kind of like, sometimes it's okay to vent and be like, Kevin, you're my buddy. Okay. Like, Kevin, man, that guy was just a complete a-hole. And I don't, and just being able to vent to each other and have that camaraderie. And Kevin can come to me and be like, yeah, there's this person that totally sucks. And, I'm there for them and to be like, yeah, forget that person. And just being able to have that team. That's number one, I would say. And the second way to really pump yourself up, it's sometimes you can talk to the people that do love you and talk to the people that you have sold and be like, hey, I'm okay, right? Like, I'm going to be okay. Like, I don't suck at this, right? They're like, yeah, no, like sometimes having that support system is important, I think that's usually the way that I've been able to bounce back pretty quickly, knowing that the people on your team or your friends or your network, the people here at Elevate, that they're able to sort of like share in what's going on, share with you with what's going on in them and their lives and how their experiences are. Like I think that helped me a lot. So reaching out.
Do you have a upbeat playlist? Do you go for a walk? Do you kiss your dog? Like, do you have any of those kind of personal things that you do?
I personally, so I love going to the gym and just getting a good sweat on and working and listening to like, I like to listen to a lot of like dance music and just lifting some weights and just running and going to the gym. And that usually makes me feel a little bit better, or taking a nice warm shower and just clearing my head and thinking in there usually helps me.
That's awesome. And then when you talk about talking to your team, so I think one of the things that's important to say is you never want to complain up, if that makes sense, right? So it's not, your manager is not your coworker or your buddy. Like it's never a good idea that you're complaining up the ladder, if that makes sense to you guys, right? So you want to have somebody and you want to make sure it's somebody that you can trust, right? There's an equal um reciprocity that's going on, right? So it's not always Nina helping someone else, it's both of them saying, I had a bad day, okay, you're good, and the other one doing that for the other one on another day. So you have to be really, really, careful with that as well, I think, just to protect your own mental health and your own wellness.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, you have to be careful when you're like venting to someone, because sometimes venting can also like multiply the angst and the frustration that you're having. So just being able to sort of ground yourself and be like, okay, I need a perspective shift. I'm having a rough day right now. Just admit it. Like, hey, it's rough right now. And the sooner you admit it, the sooner you can accept it, and then the sooner you can move on. Because for me personally, I'm a very avoidant person. I like to just kind of like, everything's fine, whatever. It's like, whatever. And I just keep pushing it to the side. And I found that over time in this career, you will break down. There will be a moment where you break down, you'll have a burnout moment, you'll have a panic attack, and everything's falling apart. And you're like, oh my God, I'm being very vulnerable. But the way you manage that is really to understand, wait, okay, I'm having a rough day, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can talk to yourself about it and then be able to accept it and move on. If you need to talk to someone, yes, like Jamie said, be very someone you trust. I generally don't vent to Tesla was different than that we were able to, but like outside of that sort of special sort of bubble, I don't recommend venting to people on your team unless you really have trust with them and like you have that rapport, because you never know where that's going to go. You never know how that's going to be filtered up or where that's going to travel, and you don't want that to travel. So I definitely recommend, if you can have a personal internal support system with your family, your partner, your parent, your friend, do that. So yeah. Does anybody else have any questions? I think there was another question that came in.
Oh,
Nathan.
Yep, Nathan's got a question.
Can you guys hear me?
Jocelyn. Yep, we can.
Okay. Hey Nina, I had a question. What kind of quota did you guys have at Tesla to sell like the cars? And did you have to go into the office or was it remote?
So for me, this was back in 2017, 2018. We were in the office. This was something that definitely needed to be in person for. Some of it could be done actually remotely. Actually, as an AE, I was able to kind of like follow up on leads and so on and so forth, like have communications online. So, but it was mostly in person. And you mentioned, wait, you're asking what was the quotas were like. Okay, the quotas would change a lot. You're gonna find that happens. I'm just gonna be really honest with you. When they start to see you doing really well, and this has happened to me personally, it's really unfortunate. Yeah, it's really unfortunate when they start to see you're making too much money, which as a salesperson, you can make a lot of money if you're good at what you do. They might start raising the bar, and not might, they definitely will start raising the bar. That's happened to a lot. So to answer your question, Nathan, it changed. But for the most part, when I left, there was a point system. So based on the trim of the car, if it was a performance model, it was on it was a point system. So it was 3 points from what I remember. A Model S, like a flagship sedan, not the performance or the model. Like, so the performance was the highest trim. That was 3 points. And then the sedan, the flagship sedan, and the Model X, the one with the cross doors, that was 2 points. And then the like Model 3 was on a 1 point system. So that was kind of how it was, but it changed all the time. And our quota was generally like, we want to sell like 30 to 40 cars a month per person.
So what you're saying is salespeople get into sales for the base salary, right? Because these guys go a little nuts on the base number. They get hung up on the base number, right? Isn't that why we get into sales, for the base, Nina?
Guys, okay, how do I explain this? Love it or hate it, but it just depends, right? I think don't be careful with that. I think sometimes, yes, if it is a really low base, just run. Don't bother. Don't waste your time. But it just depends on the situation. I think that lead generation. I worked. Oh my God, I made so much. I remember my manager actually looked at me. She's like, "You're making more than me." She was making a lot of money, and I was like, She was like, "You're making more than some of the C-level execs of this company," and I was like, "Cool." And it was just, it's the way you do it is just, yes, there is a base, and you want to make sure you can live off of that base. Worst comes to worst, but don't look at that base and go, "That's what I'm making," because please don't, you want to be able to understand there's a lot of growth there. Plus, I personally, and this is not something I personally recommend, but this is something I've done in my career, is that I just run, like, meaning I just work and work and work and work. And then you start to get to a place where you can kind of like lay off the gas a little bit and you can kind of like chill. So like, I would say as an SDR, that's why I worked so hard as a lead gen, because I knew I wanted to be an account executive. I knew I wanted to close these deals, and I knew I wanted my name in these like giant all hands calls. But it wasn't, I didn't make a ton of money, even though I brought in almost 50% of the entire region's sale, like just me alone, and like all of Vancouver, Washington, or Vancouver, Canada, Seattle, and Portland. Those three markets combined, I was the only person that brought in half of the entire total lead generation, because I knew I was like, I don't want to be an SDR forever. I want to be I want to be a salesperson. Like I want to be like leading teams too. So that all happened quickly though. I did it all within 7 months, and I didn't make that much money. I should have made more money, but that was, you know, I knew that was kind of a hazing period that I had to go through to get to where I'm at now. That's the best. That's honest, like honest to God, that's what happened that I had to do. But yeah, they will raise the quota on you if you're doing too well. It sucks. Jamie, I think you and I talked about that before.
Yeah, and so once you're an AE, right, you don't have to set any of your own appointments ever. You don't have to be a hunter anymore, right? You're done with that.
Yeah, and I mean, you're talking to your SDRs and going, hey, what's this lead about? Like, what's their whole deal? How hot are they lead?
Yes, but if your calendar's not full, you're getting them yourself,
Yes,
right?
you
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's what you guys need to understand. That's why the SDR role is so important, and why Nina worked her fanny off, for no better way to explain it, because she got really good at that. So if her SDRs faltered, or they didn't keep up, or an appointment fell out and she needed to put one in, she could just do it. She didn't need to sit around and go, I hope they fill my calendar. I hope I make money. I hope I make my quota. Like it, no. That SDR role is the key to everything, literally.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, if you need to learn how to walk before you run, and the thing is, like, I had to prospect even when I was an account executive. I was riding in a Lyft in Las Vegas for that boot camp at Tesla, and I sold the guy who was driving my Lyft a Tesla. I was prospecting him, and I got him a car. You know what I mean? Like, you should like, that's the thing. What is it? It's like, always be prospecting, because if you're not, just because you're an AE, just because you're, hell, I'm a senior account manager, I still prospect. I still ask questions. I still go, hey, let me give you my information. Let's connect. Like, that's not above you. Like, you have to, like I said, it's a building block. So before you can make the 6 figures every quarter, you got to be able to learn how to take leads, honestly, collect leads.
Yeah. So just to speak to that about the base too, right? So my last big SDR role before tech, it was kind of more on the digital marketing side or whatever. My base was 25,000. And I don't know about you guys. I live in Arizona, and I had a teenager at the time. Like you can't live on that. That's not a living wage.
Mhm.
But it didn't matter, because I got in, I put my head down, like Nina said, and I was making $150,000. So
Nice.
honestly, we don't do this for the base. I try to explain to you guys, but it's super important to get that. The base is not it. The skills are it, and being able to prospect, and then being able to build up your book of business, and then move to that AE role, so you make the money that you want to make and make the changes that you want to make.
I will say, if the base is higher, that usually means, that's usually not a good thing. It usually means it's really hard to sell.
Yeah.
They're trying to entice you to get into that role. So just be careful of that.
You might want to repeat that.
Yeah, if the base is really high, there's usually a reason why. And you're just, as for an SDR role, yeah, there's usually a reason why. Maybe high turnover. There's maybe a high turnover because it's a very difficult market to sell within. Maybe the leadership is not great. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why that base may be high, and usually they're not great reasons. So don't be
Can you
deterred by
talk about
those.
when you look at just, and I know we want to wrap this up, you guys. We want to be cognizant of
Yeah.
everyone's time, and we know it's late. So when you have that range, right? Like we were looking at a job earlier in class, and it was like from 45 to, what was it, Kevin? 65.7, I think. Um, so like, why that big of a disparity
You're muted. You're
between?
muted, Kevin.
Oh,
I think Kevin said something, but he was muted.
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
it was 65,000,
Yeah,
45
I
to
think it was
65,000.
65.7 or something like that. So there was like a pretty broad range for an SDR role. Like it was, any idea, like what does that mean? Why,
If there's a wide range, I mean, that just honestly means that they're looking. I mean, is this a role based in California, correct?
No, it's actually Workiva.
It's a
Yeah,
enterprise company that went public.
yeah. Workiva.
I know Workiva. Okay,
Yeah,
so the SDR position.
they're looking for like 20 SDRs right now. By the way,
Oh shoot.
everyone. Um. So yeah, so their range was interesting. It was like 45 to like 65.7. So I was like, interesting.
45 to 65.7. That's a fair range. I mean, I've seen something
Is
from
that
like,
pretty normal?
yeah, nowadays I would say like that range right there. That means they're looking for a broad range of folks that, I mean,
Some
always,
experience, some not, like kind of
yeah.
across the.
And
Okay.
if they ask you what your salary expectations are and they put that range, I would always put it just below the top and then, negotiate your way up. Like I was able to negotiate a pay that was like, oh, they're going to give me 70, like they wanted to give me 75, and I ended up negotiating up to 120 because I was just like, it's kind of an interesting thing. You wanna still keep going through the process even if the pay is kind of low, because you want to really wow them in the interview, and then when they actually get you to the offer stage, then you go, hey, like I'm not excited by that. Like let's talk about maybe something more that would, maybe if there was more that would, then I'd be really excited about it. And then that's when the negotiation happens. I wouldn't be too deterred if like the starting pay that the recruiter gives you is kind of on the lower side if you really want that role. And I'm happy to walk through help anybody one-on-one with negotiating, because that's something that I love. That's like literally what my TikTok is about, is negotiating and communicating, because I don't like seeing people get taken advantage of just because they don't know how to ask for what they want properly. Because a lot of people get tripped up, and that's okay. I've tripped up a lot. I'm just here to help frame it in a way, again, like the reciprocity trick, the presumptive selling trick, like just so that you could be able to get in a better position than you are now. That's literally why people are doing this. So
And where can they find Nina? Slack.
you can
On
Slack,
Slack. She's in the Elevate community.
yeah. So you can Slack me one-on-one. You can email me. You can find me on TikTok. I'm happy to chat with you guys and just sort of like see what I can do to help. I also know a lot of really good recruiters. I mean, a lot of them are technical recruiters, but like really good recruiters over at Tesla. I have good relationships with them. So, I mean, yeah, like connect with me, reach out to me. I'm a resource here for you guys.
So when you pull somebody's name up on Slack and you pull their info, her email's right there. Like it's literally in her Slack profile. So if you're wondering, how am I going to email her? She didn't give me my email. You're hunters. Look for her email. It's there, right?
Yeah,
Or you
exactly.
have Lead IQ. Go on to LinkedIn. In fact, you should be connected to her on LinkedIn, right? That's another thing. So, okay, Nathan, did you have another question?
You just answered it, Jamie. I was going to ask about her LinkedIn. So
Find it. I'm not giving it to you, and I'm not giving you her email. Find it, you guys, because it's there, and it's for everyone to find it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I think there were some questions that Jocelyn asked, what certifications do you need to get into tech sales? Honestly, Jocelyn, I did not have any. I personally did not get any certification, so to speak. I really just,
She missed the beginning of the conversation, though. You have to know that Nina knew everything about Tesla, so she
oh,
did extreme research. So you're doing either Elevate, or you're getting a degree and you know somebody in tech sales, or you're doing what Nina did, or you're doing what Norman did to get into tech sales. Like I don't want to make it sound like Nina just walked in and Tesla went,
yes.
yes, Nina's our gal. Okay, woo. You know?
Hmm.
Yeah. So I just want to be super transparent about that.
Yeah, no, Jamie's absolutely right. I didn't just walk in and say, give me a job right now. It was way more premeditated than that. And obviously right now I want to be sensitive is that, lean on the folks that you do know and lean on your network. You're not being a bother. You're not being a burden. You're and yes, you want to still do your homework, right? That's never going to change because people are going to get impressed by knowing, like, oh wow, they know their stuff. Nothing is more of a turnoff, especially now where it's like you come into a call blank and not knowing what is about, not knowing the company or not knowing about the recruiter you're talking to, just asking bad questions or no questions. Like, ask really good questions. People get impressed by that. You can win someone over just by doing that.
And that's a skill that you have to have as an SDR, asking really good questions and honestly being really curious. Like
Exactly.
those 3-year-olds that walk around going, why? Well, how come? Well, why? They make the best SDRs. They do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fast forward, they're the best SDRs.
Yeah, no, I'm basically a giant toddler. I just don't look like one, but I am a child inside, and that honestly that helps for sure.
All right, one more question. If anyone has one more question, and then we gotta let Nina sleep,
We gotta let everybody sleep.
right?
Yeah.
Anything else? All right, you know how to reach her. Thank you so much. This was incredible.
Of course. Thank
Really,
you for having
really,
me.
really